Here's a quick cheat sheet on what we're going to see at the end of this demonstration today. By creating and downloading and exporting a standard Salesforce report, we are going to be able to create for each particular record the associated and download these associated files for each of these types. In this case, I'm using cases. And at the end of this, after the report is done and the files are downloaded, you will see that you're able to click on these guys and go directly to the file structure that was made for doing this. In the case, I've chosen the case number as being the file structure. And you'll see that there is a metadata file and each of the directories for the individual files for each of the cases. Today, we're going to go over an Excel-based utility that helps us download files and put them together in a way that it can be used in packages. Now, why would we want to do this? Obviously, if possible, the best way to do this is by having people go out and look at Salesforce and directing them to the appropriate place in Salesforce to look at them. However, there are times when you need to create packages that are distributed with all of the information relative to particular information, including any files which have been attached and downloaded for them. Examples of this might be a legal discovery where you have a certain number of instances cases where you want to say, here's what those cases are, and here's the attachments that we got to it, comprehensive disclosures, audit request, FOIA, and of course, focused case study. Many executives say, why would I hired you so that I don't have to go in and do this. So let's start at the top. Basically, what we're doing in this case is we can create a package of downloaded files by creating a report, then using the documents in those reports, putting them together in a package, and then distributing the package. And here's what it's going to look like at the end of today's demonstration. What has happened is we've created a regular type report. The report had relative to it the types of information that we wanted to see the associated activities from. And we took that, and using this utility, we created this package. This package not only says, here's the information that we want to say about the individual, in this case, cases that we add attachments to, and we can also go in and by clicking on that, we can look at and see the files which were downloaded for that. So let's start from there. So the first four things we're going to do here are, first of all, set up the Salesforce organization so that you can access it. Not going to spend a lot of time here, but this is done basically by going into your app menu, creating a new connected app. And as you create this connected app, it has to be OAuth 2 enabled. And when you OAuth 2 enable, it's going to give you a whole bunch of information about that we're going to later use for configuring the actual authentication and authorization to that particular instance so that we can download the files and the information relative to it. Now, the first thing I did was I created on my local machine a directory that I'm going to do this in. This directory will have 3 tiers to it. The first is going to be the root tier. The root tier is basically going to contain one set of information, and that is going to be the configuration information to connect to the authorization and authentication of the force. The second one, and I've already downloaded, this is your utility file, which I've downloaded from the GitHub instance. And it is going to go into this directory for right now because I'm going to supplement it with information from a report that I'm about to generate. And here's the fun part. As you can see, I've actually pre-created a report. This report is going to contain the information about, in this case, the particular cases that I want to show And then for each of the cases to say that I want to download all of the files and attachments related to those cases. So in this case, the two real key fields here are case number, because I'm going to use the case number as a directory structure in which I load the file. So I'm not loading the file all into one directory and letting somebody figure out if you've got different files or files with the same name. And the second one, and this is most important one, is the IDs of the objects, the records to which these are related. And that's going to become essential. I'm now going to take this information and I'm going to export it as a formatted report. And I'm going to export it down into my demo area. Having put it into this area, I'm going to do a couple of little cheats here. One is I'm going to rename my utility macro file to be the same as the downloaded file that I just did. And I'm also going to create a new folder and give it the same name. Now I'm going to take these two files that I just used and put them back up into here. And this is now my working folder. And as we had talked about this before, the reason that we're doing this is because we do not want to actually accidentally download any authentication or authorization information as part of our package. So that will all be back in this directory. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to open up each of these. I'm going to open them separately. And you can see the first one comes up into the configuration for the utility itself. And the second one is going to be the file that we just downloaded. Now let me start with that one for a couple of reasons. One of them is I am now going to make this file here. I'm going to add a, oops, I need to enable editing here. I'm going to make this into a table. And the reason I'm going to make this into a table is for configuration purposes that we're going to see in just a second. So having done this, I go in, I format this as a table. I create this. This table already has headers. Having done this, I'm going to name this table CRTR. All right. I'm now going to take this tab as it is, and I'm going to move it into my utility program, which is right here. Okay. I'll move it to the end. Okay. And now you can see that I have my utility program with that spreadsheet, which was loaded directly from my instance. I'm going to make a couple of configuration changes here. One of them is my S notes. S notes are your comments and other specialized types of attachments you can add, which come out as a type of S note document. In this case, I'm going to set this to be true. Not that I have any here. And I want to load all the versions out too. I don't just want to load the latest one. So those are two of the overall configurations I want to make. Now, the next ones get a little bit more fun. Okay, remember I changed the name of the linked table that I was using there to CRTR? Well, I want to use that as my table file. I also want to use the worksheet name just as it came down from Salesforce. Makes it easier to cross-correlate them if I have to in the future. And perhaps most importantly, I need to say, what are my related IDs? And in this case, one of the related IDs is a case ID, and that is my linked ID column. So I'm going to go and put that in there. And a cool little feature here, I am going to use case numbers to establish my directory structure, so that for every, I'm going to create a local directory for every unique one of those that is in my directory structure. One other feature is, as part of that spreadsheet, I'm automatically going to add a column called Associated Docs, which will tell me the number of docs that were found for this particular item. And if you click on that in the cell, it will automatically take you to where those documents were stored. Now, having done that, I think we're ready to actually start our next step, which is let's do the actual download itself. Now, having done that, we've set up our global settings. We've set up the particular things that we need for this one. Let's start the download. As we do the download, you will see that we're going to have 7 files. You can see them downloading those files right there. You will see that we have now created a complete set of information here, which was added to the file. That includes the associated docs. If we press on that associated docs, we will see the files that it downloaded for that particular instance of this case. And having done that, I just went and I did a little bit of cleaning up here to make the thing more attractive for our users. And one of the things I'm going to go ahead and eliminate this column because I really no longer need the case IDs. I'm just going to delete that column, just like you would any other normal editing and formatting. Now, I no longer need this particular file. This is the one I downloaded, so I'm just going to delete it. I incorporated it into there. And if you take a look, you can now see the directory structure of what we created. We have the working file, which basically says, here's the information about the cases that I downloaded into. And for each one of these, we have a directory that has the individual files, which the user can take a look at. I am now ready to package this up, but let's do a little bit of cleanup before we do that. Back in the download parameters, there's another button there, which is called Cleanup for Transfers. And what this does, it removes some of the working products which were created to do this. Some of the working products might be useful for you in terms of what did I get? How did I get more information about it? Or it may not. However, it's almost certainly information you do not want to redistribute to anybody. So we go in and we say clean up for transfer. And clean up for transfer is going to tell you I'm going to delete some of these because you don't need them anymore. And I'm also going to save this as a macro-free workbook. And I'm going to delete the original the macro file. Okay, now what you see is we have a spreadsheet, which is fairly clean and straightforward. It has the information that you want to distribute in terms of whatever information is specific to the particular case. And then, of course, for each of these, you have the downloads and you have downloaded the files. We're going to exit out of here. All right, and as we exit out of here, we can now see that we're back in the original structure. We definitely do not want to send this on, but you can see we now have the structure that we do want to send. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out here. I'm going to add these cases to a zip file. And now it is completely ready to distribute, where it not only has the information, the metadata about the files that you had and what they're related to, but for each one, of course, it has the individual files. And with that, you've seen it download. Now, there are a couple of other things you can do with this. You don't obviously have to create a report. You can just create a 2-column table and do the same thing with it. The 2 columns being, one of them is the related, all of the records that you would like to see the related files to. And then the other one is the directories you want to have them in. If you don't want the directories themselves to go anywhere, then just leave the directory column blank, and it will load it back into your working directory here. The other thing is you can also do that with CDLs, content document links directly. If you use a content document link, it will download the specified content documents without going through the intermediate of the related IDs. Although it will also give those to you in one of the worksheets if you need to. With that, I'm going to close up here. I hope that this has been useful to you, and hope this is useful.